been officially declared dead, and so we mourn her loss. We're gathered here today to bid farewell to one of the icons of our time, the Great Barrier Reef, or just the Reef to their closest friends. The Reef was born off the coast of Queensland to poor parents, coral and rocky reef. She spent her entire life in the same area, bringing joy and laughter to so many people. No one knows exactly when she was born. She has just always been there. We assume that she always would be. However, that was not to be. The Reef was a formidable presence. The earliest stories from the dream time go back 15,000 years, when the Reef was formed by sea level rises. The first European stories go back to the days of Captain James Cook. He admired Her Majesty and reported back to England that she was a beauty to behold. She did have a small disagreement with Cook's ship, the Endeavour, which led to the ship and her crew being laid up at Cape Tribulation for repairs. But Cook forgave her and they parted on good terms. The Reef has become world famous. She was considered one of the 7 wonders of the world and gained World Heritage status in 1981. Sadly, she is no more. We all have fond memories of her. I remember putting our young children in the Holden on a wet and dreary morning in Melbourne and setting off to visit the great lady. We arrived 3 days later, tired, dusty and grumpy, but after spending a few hours in the waters surrounding her home, we were refreshed and revitalised. Our children would explore with her 3 children, Coral Reef, Sandy Bay and Rocky Outcrop. They would disappear for the day, spending time exploring the area, and would return exhausted but elated. They still talk of the times they spent together. Not only did the Reef stand as one of the great wonders of the world, but she acted as a home for billions of fish and other marine animals. She formed a barrier against the worst of what nature could throw at them. A place of peace and comfort, where fish and other animals could survive and thrive. Many turtles were born on her shores and then headed off for world trips, returning years later to breed and continue the cycle of life that the Reef was so much a part of. While today we remember the great things that the Reef has achieved over the years, I must spend a moment to mourn her passing, cut short in her prime. The Reef has long suffered from the scourge of coral bleaching. In her youth, she would often be afflicted by bouts of coral bleaching, where small areas would overheat and become a ghostly skeleton. But she overcome these attacks and will recover to be as beautiful as ever. However, in her final years, the attacks came more often and were of far greater size. The Reef would fight back, but eventually the attacks were too strong and too frequent, and she succumbed. Some of us who saw her in her later years found it difficult to recognise the thing of beauty that she once was. We all know that coral bleaching was the symptom, but the cause was climate change. There were many in our community that recognised the risk, with Prime Minister Rudd stating that climate change was the greatest moral challenge for our generation. Some, like Tony Abbott, could never accept it, with Tony once famously declaring climate change was bullshit. Perhaps, like other coal addicts, he was in denial. So, while we celebrate today the life of the Great Barrier Reef and mourn her passing, perhaps something good can come from her death. Perhaps we can all join together and recommit to defeat climate change. So I ask you all now to repeat after me the phrase, "We will defeat climate change."
We will defeat climate change.
For the sake of our children, we will sorry, don't say that bit, just say for the sake of our children, we will defeat climate change. For the sake of our grandchildren,
we will defeat climate change.
For the sake of all species on Earth,
we will defeat climate change.
Thank you, and long may the Great Barrier Reef live in your hearts and in your memories. Farewell, friends.